Check out this guy down here with his cart pushing this trailers around sideways. They must build this stuff like a tank. Just banging into it and using it 24 hours a day and just pushing stuff around sideways.
It's one way to use tools.
Big trip, guys. We're going from Springfield to Dallas and then from Dallas to Sydney. 2 weeks. Yeah. That's what the top of the cloud looks like.
It's my first time flying. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm still alive. We've been going for about 10 minutes now. They just turned the seatbelt light off sign thingy.
Made it to the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. We got the first leg of our journey over with. Springfield to Fort Worth was only like an hour flight, so we've got about a 3-hour layover left. We're gonna get a bite to eat before we make our 20-hour flight to Australia. Josh and I just got done with Subway. It was probably the best Subway I've ever had. Maybe it's just because I'm excited about this trip we're on, or maybe it was because I actually got double meat for the first time. Who knows?
$5 for a Big Mac.
That sounds about right, doesn't it?
$1.16 for a hamburger.
Is more expensive than a Big Mac? It's about the right price.
Yeah, cheeseburger's about the same.
We got a Best Buy Express over here. All the conveniences of your local Best Buy without the inconvenience of going to Best Buy. You can just stop by while you're in the airport now and get all your Best Buy needs right here, Redbox style. Square People Tube. Shout out to Destin of Smarter Every Day. It's a really long square tube. We're on the Airbus getting ready to take off. They actually have a menu for food options, which is really cool. And we got a spare seat between us that's completely empty, so we can really chillax on the trip there. It's gonna be great.
6.5 hours later.
I got some Aussie beer. It's really good from Tasmania. We've got our chicken dinner. Haven't broke into that yet. Set for our first in-flight meal. Those greens are well seasoned. Lots of garlic, salt and pepper. I think it was kale. Kind of reminds me of just roasted spinach. This flight is famous for its fancy meals. Very hot and fresh. The chicken was tender. Be hard pressed to get chicken that tender at a restaurant, let alone 45,000 feet in the air.
The next day.
We just got off the plane. Karin picked us up at the airport and is taking us on an amazing tour. We're getting ready to go to a beach somewhere, right? And we're on a ferry, and I'm just looking all over the place like a tourist that I am. Right off the plane, Karin took us to Manly Beach, and it was a ferry ride. The ferry was right near the Opera House, so the beach wasn't too far from there. Here behind us is the one thing that Americans really recognize right away when they see, sadly. There's actually so many cool buildings to see in Sydney, including that really cool metal bridge with the stone pillars on each end. Karin said that a lot of people take the ferry from one part of Sydney to the other because it's actually a lot faster to commute to work on the ferry than it is to drive there. I believe Josh got about 8 or 10 hours of sleep on the plane, but I didn't sleep hardly at all. So I was pretty exhausted. But Karin was going to keep us up pretty much all day long to try to ward off the jet lag and keep us busy and hiking and walking around as much as possible. There we are, Manly Wharf. I'm going to go see the ocean for the first time in like 5 years. We live in the middle of Springfield, Missouri, so yeah, we don't get out to the ocean very often. And like I said, it's probably been about 5 years since I've been to the ocean. Something that really surprised me were the amount of like tropical kind of birds they had in Australia. They had cockatoos and all sorts of different exotic birds that I totally wasn't expecting to see. Look, I made a sword in Australia. Sword in a sheath, goes back in just like a little sheath from a pine tree.
Corn's idea.
I'm at the Manly Beach. My first cup of true Australian cappuccino coffee. It's really good. Super dark without being bitter. Just smooth and creamy. This looks really good. Look at these eggs Benedict. It's 2 of them on a giant piece of bread. Oh man. The eggs were very Benedict.
And where are we going next, Corn?
No, we're gonna go and climb the bridge. We'll climb the bridge pylon.
That breakfast was amazing. The place was right on the beach and it was all open air to the beach, so there was a nice breeze coming in and beautiful weather, and it was really, really nice just having a breakfast somewhere like that. Everything felt so light and cheery. Not to mention the food was great, and had my first Australian coffee, and that was really good too. So we're walking towards the bridge that you saw earlier when we first got on the ferry. We're gonna head over there and then climb up one of the pillars. So we're inside one of the pillars of the bridge right here, climbing up to the top to hopefully get a really nice view. Guys, we climbed up the bridge. I think it was literally like 1,000,000 steps and I was out of breath, but the view is amazing up here. I'm kind of a little bit speechless because I haven't ever seen this much city all in one place before. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, just insane. You can see so far, and there's like outcroppings of city way out there. It's amazing. The city of Sydney really was sprawling all over the place. You could take a tour and go up onto the arch of the bridge. I guess they have tours that are booked months in advance because people are always wanting to go up there. There's pretty much city in every direction that you looked. Let's make up for that. For lunch, Matt and Corin brought Josh and I to this little cove with a really nice restaurant right on the beach. I think it was one of the oldest restaurants in the area. I believe it started somewhere around 1860. We had some absolutely amazing seafood. They ordered these giant platters that had variety of all sorts of different stuff, and they were incredible. Probably the best seafood I ever had, and definitely the freshest. We just got done eating the most incredible seafood meal I think I've ever had. It was amazing, an amazing view. Seeing the ocean right there while we're eating, and delicious seafood. All sorts of different stuff. Everything was really good. Matt took us up to this cliff where they have a really old anchor from a ship that crashed a couple 100 yards off the shore right there. It was really cool to see. The anchor was so old, really old wrought iron with just an amazing wood-like texture on it. We're at Matt's shop. It is really cool. Historic, they used to build trains here. There's a dwarf door. This is Matt Everly's shop where he does blacksmith training, bladesmith,
I mean,
artistic ironwork, basically anything that involves hot steel and a hammer. He teaches it here, and it's quite an impressive shop. It's under construction right now because they're remodeling it, so everything's really torn apart, but even with everything like it is, scattered all over, I can see how cool a lot of the equipment and stuff is here. It's gonna be amazing when they get this place remodeled and back to the way it was in its prime. The entire shop used to run off steam, so there's steam pipes going all over the place for all the different types of equipment. This place predates electricity too, so they had skylights all over in the ceiling for lighting. They've got presses and crazy big saws, air hammers, and steam converted air hammers, and all sorts of crazy cool forging stuff here. This is a massive, massive pipe threader. Or not pipe threader, just threader in general. You could thread anything in that thing.
This bad boy, which is exactly what it looks like. It's a hot cut saw, and this spins around at 1,000 RPM, and it throws, again, it doesn't throw sparks, it throws chips. You sit it down in here, and then you wind the blade into it, and it just goes.
There's one of the steam-powered air hammers. The biggest hydraulic press I've ever seen in my life. This thing is huge. The frame is also the guide system for it. 1,500 tons. 1,500 tons. That is crazy. My press is like 40 tons. It's hydraulic, but it runs on water for the hydraulics. Water and steam to power it. It's got 2 giant tanks sitting next to it. Quite the piece of machinery. Yeah, I've seen mine.
Very, very old, very rare. Yeah.
Here's the biggest air hammer in the shop. This thing is absolutely massive. You can see us standing next to it. We look like tiny, tiny little humans next to that thing. There's gantry work all over the ceiling so you can haul your giant piece of metal from the forge to the hammer. Because you'd be working with giant pieces of metal that you can't haul by hand, so you'd use the gantry system. Something else really cool about this air hammer is that the frame actually cracked on one side of it. And since this is a giant yard for working on trains, they do everything on site. Right across the road from the building, they used to have a building where they smelted steel for the train yard. So when the press frame cracked, all on site, just starting with iron ore, they smelted new steel and cast a new frame piece and replaced the one that had cracked on the air hammer. So cool that they did all that on site.
Little one? It's a little animal.
I could barely lift the tongs, let alone holding something in them. This is the 700 weight Massey that I was getting ready to run. I was super excited, but also super terrified of it. You see my face. I was like, ah! This thing was absolutely massive. Matt lit up one of the smallest forges in the shop, threw a giant chunk of steel in there and we're heating it up so I could play around with the air hammer. I'm so terrified of it right here. I've got about 5 minutes of time logged on any air hammer, let alone a 700 weight like this. Corin was telling me to hold the tongs just right or I'll break my wrists too, so that didn't help. I've heard of that happening. I've never seen it. I've never seen that.
You actually see the friction of the steel. Yeah. Mate, it's had a full, we've ripped it down not more than 6 months ago. Yeah.
Man, if you really go crazy with it once you got comfortable,
You
like
did.
you were.
Totally.
Man.
And we've worked blocks that are like 30 kilos, 50-pound blocks.
These are 4 boilers off of steam engines right out front of Matt's shop. Corin drove us around a little bit of the countryside on our way to Keith Flutter's house. We stopped along a bridge to see all the fruit bats. There was tons and tons of them just hanging out, roosting during the day. That was our trip to Sydney and only one day in Australia. We were so busy going all over, eating great food and seeing everything we could. In the next video, we're gonna head out into the Blue Mountains and try to see if we can find a mob of kangaroos. After that, Josh and I are gonna go to the Australian Blade Symposium and meet all sorts of cool knife makers and do our presentations. Thanks so much for watching. May the forge be with you. Bye-bye.